What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's going on with the overall market moving forward, what importance data is coming out that's going to cause some volatility. Also some news about Tesla. We're seeing some new headlines coming out about its price action and the Cybertruck. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a few things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. Anyways, Tesla has this resistance around this 235 area. If we manage to break through this, I'll be looking for 238. And we have support currently around 233 and then 231. Overall, Tesla's holding up quite well, but just note that we did tag this 240 area only to come back down during this pre-market session. And overall, it's still showing a lot of life, still showing lots and lots of strength. So the question is, what's going to happen from here? I'll be breaking this down. Just notes that headlines are saying that Tesla's up another 3% in the pre-market. It's still better than expected when it comes to deliveries, and they did very, very well right here. Don't also forget about how their energy storage business is doing better than expected, hitting new records for what they reported yesterday. So very, very bullish news. Tesla still has a lot of momentum. We were talking about this yesterday, and Tesla's still continuing to hold it very well. On top of this, you have to remember that with the uptrend on Tesla, we have some very, very bullish targets coming out thanks to that. I'm going to make another video about this to talk about this in more detail, excuse me. But Dan Ives from Wedbush actually raised his price target from $275 to $300, which is very, very bullish news. And we also have more outperform ratings, at least for Tesla stock. He also mentioned that the AI story could be worth over $1 trillion. Great news for Tesla. I will go over this in more detail later on. There's also news that the Cybertruck is once again being tested in Greenfield, California. So this is a part of California where they're starting to kind of test it, see how it's looking. And it's also going to be joining, once again, the police department's new Model Y fleet. So very, very cool stuff. It's also going to be reducing not only pollution, but also they're saying that this could also be a lot more affordable than just using gas. So very, very cool stuff, if anything, using a Cybertruck for that. When it comes to their deliveries, there's some headlines still saying that Tesla's quarterly deliveries are once again in this decline. They're still saying that there's this decline that's showing signs that they're losing EV dominance. I personally don't really agree with that because even though we have these different factors affecting Tesla, from high interest rates, all this negative sentiment, Tesla still has the third highest deliveries record of all time reported. It's still actually showing a big improvement compared to the previous quarter. It beat expectations, and there is potential for it to grow even more and break these records. So I think that Tesla is actually still doing decently. I think that, imagine if interest rates went down, Tesla's sales would be much higher. It would be absolutely incredible. And once again, the Fed will cut rates soon. It's going to happen eventually, maybe later on during this year. They're going to start, and when interest rates start going down, this would help things a lot, at least for the EV sector, at least for Tesla. And that could change things a lot, at least for like the more long term. So I'm not necessarily worried about this. I think they're going to be fine. So now the question is, what's going to happen with the markets moving forward? As a reminder to everyone out there, 15 minutes. Well, sorry, let's first talk about initial jobless claims before I talk about that. Initial jobless claims was at 238,000, a little bit above expectations. Market's down just a bit in the pre-market after this came out, but nothing too significant. Anyways, 15 minutes after market open, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI coming out. This might cause some volatility as we have the services and composite PMI. This will give us more gauges on how the economy is looking. So I'll be watching to see what this leads to. And then simultaneously, at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the ISM Services PMI, the services, business, employment, new orders, and prices all coming out 30 minutes after the market ends up opening. So I'll be watching to see what this leads to. Now, services, new orders, and prices are going to be very important because with this data release, this data is going to lead to, once again, not only more volatility, but we're going to see this particular sector give us more insights on inflation as the data is very forward looking. So I expect some high volatility at 10 o'clock a.m. Watch and see what this leads to for Tesla and the markets. Are we about to get a big rug pull once this data comes out? Or are we about to see the market rocket? I can't wait to see. So I'm going to be very patient, and we'll see if this causes anything else that's like that. Besides that, there's not really a whole lot else going on. Market is still kind of neutral in terms of sentiments. We're just going to wait and see what this data leads to. Do we become more greedy, more fearful? I will wait and see. And then as a reminder, today the stock market is going to close at 1 p.m. So it's going to close very early. Today we only have half a day. And then going into Thursday, the market's going to be closed completely for the 4th of July. So keep this in the back of your mind, guys. Anyways, what do we see for Tesla right over here? Tesla pumped very, very nicely to 240, only to come back down. We're going to be looking at this 235 area. This is where we're kind of consolidating. If we lose this, I'll be looking at 233. If we bounce off this, I'll be looking at 238. Now, overall, it's still holding up very well, still green in the pre-markets. We'd still have a gap to fill technically if we do end up gapping up, so just be mindful of that. So Tesla could still kind of like pop. If we do dip a little bit, we could still come down to fill this gap and bounce back up and still end up holding up very well. But I do think there's a risk of Tesla coming down to fill its gap. I do see a somewhat of a risk of that. So we will see. In my personal opinion, I think for the first 30 minutes, the market doesn't really, whatever the market does won't matter as much. 15 minutes after open, we might see some volatility. And then at 10 o'clock a.m., we're going to see a much bigger move. So the odds favor a very, very big move at 10 a.m. And I think we'll be watching to see what that leads to. But because Tesla pumps so much, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually come down to fill this gap, maybe try to bounce. And then we'll see what the data causes. If the data causes a big bounce for the markets, Tesla could be pushing back up to 238. If not, Tesla could kind of dip back down to fill this gap around 231, come back up, consolidate for a bit, and maybe even slow down a little bit lower and just see some sideways price action. I do see a risk of Tesla kind of dipping a little bit to fill this gap and then bouncing, but then we'll see what happens at 10 a.m. once the data is released. For SPY is testing its 30 minutes 20 EMA. If we lose this, we're going to be coming all the way down to 547. And if that fails us, we're coming all the way down to 545.8. I'll be watching those support levels. If we get a bounce from here, we'll be looking at 550 as resistance. So I'm going to be very, very patient with this, at least moving forward. Now, SPY, in my personal opinion, has potential to go either way. I think when we open, we're going to see a little bit of weakness. Maybe we kind of pop and start to slow down just a bit. I am seeing some signs of contraction, so maybe some consolidation right here in this 548 area. We could even get closer to 547 range. And then I'll be watching to see what happens with this big data release. Does it cause SPY to rocket? If we do rocket, we could be going back up to 550 and test this high all over again. And if we break that, we're going to go to new all-time highs to 552 and 555. And then if the data comes out at 10 a.m. and it causes the opposite, it's also possible that SPY kind of consolidates and starts dipping back down. If we lose 547, I'll be looking at 545.8 and 545. So I'll be watching to see, look for a little dip upon open and then some consolidation. And then when the data comes out, see if we get a big rug pull or not, or if we get a big pump at 10 o'clock a.m. For Nvda, we're still technically on a bit of a downtrend right here. If I bring up like the 4-hour time frame, I'll show you. Nvidia is showing some weakness. It's still downtrending like this, so there is a risk of this continuing to fall. However, with this downtrend, I think that we could kind of reject this resistance and start tipping a little bit lower. So this is looking very, very nice so far. Now, if we were to break past 123.5, then we could be pushing much higher, but we're on a bit of a downtrend here, so this is looking a lot more probable, a lot more favorable. So the odds do favor this kind of continuing like this. So we watch to see how things end up developing on Nvidia, especially on the 4-hour time frame. And I'm going to be very, very patient nonetheless. But let me just make it very clear that if we see something very, very big happen with the data, we need to see Nvidia break 127. Otherwise, it's on the downtrend and it's going to likely continue to do so. For Bitcoin's also kind of sinking a bit. We failed to hold the key support at 60,500. And now we're looking back to bearish on Bitcoin. So this could be a negative sign. If Bitcoin fails to hold support right here, we're just barely at support this 59,000 area. I'll be looking for a move all the way back down towards 58,000 and lower levels. Bitcoin is looking kind of weak right here. For a few more, we also have the QQQ. QQQ has been pushing very nicely. We'll see if we can hold 484 or not. If we hold above 484, we could be trying to push a little bit higher, try to test this resistance up here towards 488. And if we end up sinking, watch 484. If we lose this, there could be a big rug pull back down towards 480. So we will see if the QQQ if it fails to kind of get that breakout. We had a cup and handle structure. We looked very bullish. We went a little bit higher during the pre-market. We did push up to about 488. And we'll see if we end up breaking through that or if we get a rejection. I'll be waiting for that very, very carefully. For Apple's consolidating at this 220 area. If we reject, I'll be looking at 215.9 and eventually 212. And if we break through this, I'll be looking for 222. We're kind of consolidating right here, so it looks kind of sideways. Watch for a big move at 10 o'clock a.m. and see which way we go. I'm just going to be very patient for now. As far as Supermicro goes, we're still shuffling around this 844 area. If we do break this, look for 860. If we reject here, we're coming back down to 831, then lower levels like 820. So watch to see if we get a rejection or not. We're at key resistance. I'm going to wait for market open for that one. For the IWM Russell 2000, we've pushed to about the 202. So now we're kind of like shuffling here. I have to see if we hold this. If we lose 201.5, we're going to be dipping down to 200. If we hold above 202, we could be trying to rebound. I'll be watching to see, so be very, very patient nonetheless. For Coinbase, the 4 hour is showing a little bit of weakness right here. We could be testing this trend. Let's look for a little bit of a dip here. I would be watching 220. If we bounce off here, we could continue higher. If we lose 220, there's going to be a bigger dip coming all the way back down to 214. So just be careful. A big test is coming on Coinbase. I'm seeing some weakness nonetheless. Amazon was trying to break out. We have 200 as key resistance. If we break this, 202 is coming. If we reject here, we're coming back down to 197.5 and 196. So watch to see what the reaction is at 10 a.m. Do we reject off 200 or not? I am seeing some signs that resistance is tough on Amazon. Meta as well. We're kind of shuffling at 512.5. If we bounce and break out, look for 515. We do look kind of bullish on the 4 hour. If we fail, look at 508. If that fails, we're going back down to 505. So I'll be waiting for that. And then we have Microsoft's trying to push. It's on a very, very nice uptrend. We could be testing 460. We'll see if we break here or not. If we reject, we could be dipping back down to 454, excuse me. For Google's also been pushing very, very nicely, but I'm just going to wait and see how we end up getting our reactions. But with that being said, I think there's a risk of Google coming down to 184, so I'll have to give that some time as well. Anyways, as far as the market goes, the market's looking like it's fighting some tough resistance right now. We did push a little bit higher during the pre-market. Now I'm going to be very, very careful. I would say this: wait for the data release. Market might try to dip a little bit upon open, and then once this data comes out, we'll see what the move is at 10 o'clock a.m. Do we rocket back up or do we get a rug pull? We'll wait and see and be very, very patient nonetheless. As far as Tesla goes, we do have a gap that's kind of forming as we're trying to gap up. So we might see a little dip on Tesla, but then we could rebound later. And then we're going to be looking for a big reaction at 10 a.m. So make sure you watch the levels I showed you guys earlier, and we'll see how things go. With that being said, I want to thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.